I found the above quote from teacher Aaron Gruwell, who inspired the movie Freedom Writers and has various TED Talks as an advocate for students and their journeys. I believe that education is the greatest equalizer. Thus, I will continue to fight to equalize the playing field in an educational atmosphere that is not always level. I found that this quote is perfect to describe and explain what advocacy really means to me. Advocacy is equalizing the playing field for all students, whether it be accommodations, differentiation, multicultural approaches to curriculum and materials, giving marginalized students a voice in the classroom through letting them share, teaching mainstream culture students about cultures different than their own, tapping into students' funds of knowledge in order to plan meaningful lessons, making students the experts on topics that they have lived and experienced, and the list goes on, because each individual student brings their own story to the table. It's my job to make sure that their story is heard within the context of the classroom and in the school community. Nuestros alumnos vienen de una multitud de culturas y lenguas que consisten de muchos juicios de valor y normas culturas. Underlying and compromising language and culture is a complex network of power relations and the way in which people view the world through their social and cultural identities. Perhaps English language learners, or ELLs, are among the most misunderstood when it comes to understanding behaviors in the classroom because they are misunderstood from teachers' unilateral viewpoints of students as simply students and not comprehensive members of society. For this reason, advocacy is one of the most important things that we do as ESOL teachers. The main point I want to convey is that no hay un formato que todos los ELLs sigan para aprender y formar la lengua y el desarrollo de la alfabetización. According to Harper and DeJong, many teachers assume that L1 and L2 learning son universales, and they conclude that all ELLs can be expected to follow the same route and the same rate for learning in a second language. Students' different backgrounds and experiences with language in general, and especially how their language compares with the dominant language, shapes their order and rate of acquisition. Collaborating with mainstream teachers is an inevitable part of advocating for ELLs, and I have a few ideas about how to successfully meet with my students' mainstream classroom teachers to ensure that they're receiving effective instruction. At the beginning of the year, it's necessary to meet with ELL's teachers to go over their accommodations. When I can't pull students to take tests in my room where I know they're getting proper accommodations, it is of utmost importance that teachers are aware of these kinds of tools to help students succeed. That's why they exist. Another way to scaffold instruction for my ELL students is to develop simplified versions of the assignments that they turn into the teacher. So if students are working way beyond their comprehension, assignments won't be helpful, but they'll be overwhelming and defeating. It's also important to have these collaboration times to talk about students' progress as well as their weaknesses. It might also be helpful for me to give mainstream classroom teachers a profile for each ELL student in their class at the beginning of the year, giving general background of the student, their native country, their L1, the number of years that they've been in the United States, some facts about their L1 language and culture, and some of their strengths and struggles. So this might not be an option the first year that I'm teaching because I won't really know my students, but subsequent years I will definitely use some of that. Los ELLs gastan el mayor del día en la mainstream salón. Entonces es muy importante que los maestros sepan el mejor manera en que educan los alumnos de ESOL, but also have their academic goals and agendas in mind when designing lessons and curriculum. Another huge component of advocacy centers around advocating for parents and families of my students. In the United States, parent-school relationships are much different sometimes because of the language barrier and the conflicting and oftentimes unequal positions of power. However, Diaz-Rico points out that a fundamental right of all parents is school support for the home language, which is kind of common sense. Es importante recordar que culturas diferentes tengan normas diferentes de involucración parental encima del contexto escolar. Whereas my Japanese students' mothers and families might be much more involved in school activities and parent meetings, my Hispanic students' families are not as actively involved. I don't attribute the amount of involvement to whether or not these families care more or less about their children, but to the social and political aspect as well as the socioeconomic aspect of the situations. While Japanese mothers typically stay at home with their children while fathers work white-collar jobs outside of the home, Hispanic parents typically work blue-collar jobs outside of the home and don't have as many opportunities to make themselves available at school during the week. Not putting judgment onto the families of our ELLs, but reaching out to parents in different ways will allow parents from every culture and experience to do what they can to participate in their children's academic and social lives at school. Every parent, just like every person, contributes a different dynamic to the school as a whole. So we should take this opportunity to embrace these differences by getting to know parents and talking to them to know what they expect from us and what we expect from them.